Oh no, no, no. All right. So you remember how we start? 1, 2, 3. Whoa! Quaker Kid Productions 2022. Everybody, whoa! Quake! Oh no! Okay, stop. All right, here we go. 2022 interview time. 20scene.com. Everybody, we got Kirsten White. Welcome, Kirsten.
Hi,
Yes.
everybody.
Yes. Sorry for the microphone cutting in and out a little bit. I know there's some clicking going on, but we're going to move forward anyways. Different background. Hope you all enjoy it. But yeah, the main focus here is Kirsten White. Amazing vocalist. Amazing. And I like plays multiple bands. We're going to get into it. Like Pretty Boy and LILIM, my two favorite of the bands. And you know, like this is just, I'm so stoked. Like I had the other night, we had 2 guys show up, heavy, you know, scream vocalists and stuff like that, and now we got a lady representing the women's side. You know, it's freaking awesome. Like, and so Kirsten, I thank you for being here. Welcome. And yeah, like we're gonna have some fun. I love the dog in the background, by the way. That's
What's Jimmy?
yes.
Hi.
I did it. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're gonna just real quick, so people know. For anybody who's just tuning in for the first time, you know, doesn't know what we do. 20 Scene is a zine collective. You know, Quaker Kid Productions is the overall, you know, production outfit, and we do media videos and like interviews and like cultural stuff. But like, yeah, started off with miniature magazines, 8.5 by 11, you know, folded in half, and like and now we have a website, 20scene.com, and that's, you know, we're doing interviews on basically with people or members of bands who were at shows that we covered on the website. You can see all the videos of all the shows that we have video footage for in the video section, the QKP videos at 20scene.com. And yeah, so like we got Kirsten White. She's appeared on a video there playing with Pretty Boy, and that leads to my question, because you've appeared.
You included LILIM in your zine too. I remember.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was just about to mention. That Pretty Boy and LILIM were both in the zines, and so my question is about both of them. If you could give me a quick rundown, how did they start? Like, what was, you know, like, or how did you get involved in LILIM and Pretty Boy?
Well, I started LILIM. LILIM's my first ever band I've ever been in ever. And I went to a lot of hardcore metal shows for a long time, and just kind of got bored with the all male lineups, to be honest, and just kind of started asking around. And my friend Marty, who plays with me in LILIM, I bugged him for months, and he goes, just, you know, if you find a drummer and you find a bassist, I'll jam with you, is what he said. And so 2 weeks later, I came back and said, haha, Marty, I found a drummer and a bassist. Now you got to play music with me. And we started jamming, and 6 months later we played our first show, and we recorded a demo, and it was really natural. I know that I'm really like lucky and hashtag blessed for it to happen that way, because I know that it's pretty hard to start a band, and let alone a band that keeps going and people actually show up and want to participate. And then our drummer and our bassist eventually left, and decided they didn't want to play anymore. And we got Miranda, they're together, Miranda and Adam, who are our rhythm section and dear friends and just super talented. And now it's just sort of like 4 buds get to hang out and make weird queer feminist tunes together. And it's been magic. I feel like I've had like the best first band experience ever. I don't feel like a lot of people get that, and I wish it for everyone. And then Pretty Boy was Izzy and Joni were already jamming as a 2-piece, and they heard about me through Izzy and I both work in advertising, and Izzy had was talking to somebody saying like, oh, I really want to play like hardcore punk, and I want to make an all female or all female identifying band, and I really can't find like an aggressive singer that I just can't find the right person for this. And this guy I'd done a campaign with him years ago, was like, do you know this girl Kirsten White? She's a producer. She plays in this metal band, LILIM. And she was like, no. And so Joni and Izzy started just showing up at LILIM shows. Like, they wouldn't talk to me. They didn't talk to me. They just stood in the corner, would get super high and drunk and just stand there. And then finally one day they got up the courage to come talk to me and said, like, would you ever be interested in coming and playing in like a surf rock hardcore band? And I was like, probably not a surf rock band, but I'd be into playing in a hardcore band. And I just started jamming with them. And then actually originally Miranda joined. And so it was me and Miranda were in both bands together, which was great. But Miranda has like 8 projects, including her own personal project. And she just couldn't keep like that commitment level up, which is totally fair. And so we grabbed Kat from Walmart and, you know, made tunes for the next couple of years together. And I feel like I'm not even close to being cool enough to be in that band. Like the women in that band are just so cool. I'm constantly like, are you sure you guys really want me here?
Pretty Boy is fucking awesome. I loved everything about that band. Like, as soon as I saw you guys, I was like, oh shit. Like, it just, you know, everyone was sort of like aesthetically in place, and then the music just hit, and I was like, oh fuck. And you were just like wilding out. Like, the video I got of you is so good. Like, and like, this is, I don't know. I think you did a good job, like, fitting in with that sort of, I guess, group, right? Like, it's
yeah, they let me be my bratty self. Like, I jokingly dubbed the genre bratty punk because like they just let me go out and be a total pain in the ass. And like, we have 2 albums we've been sitting on forever that'll be out in a bit. And I guess I should say with this, like, we're not a band anymore. We during COVID just decided that we were going to kind of go our separate ways, and everyone sort of has a lot of things they got to do. So Pretty Boy in its original form is no longer, but these 2 albums will come out, and they are like just the expressions of my most bratty, shitty, fucked up, 16 to 22-year-old self, like stuff you would be so embarrassed to even admit to, and they let me write about it and talk about it, because those years were, like, I think for a lot of people, very like confusing and complicated years. So I'm glad I had an outlet for them.
Well, that's really awesome. Those 2 albums are going to come out. Like, I think Pretty Boy deserved more than just the release that you dropped. I mean, that was a good, like, that would stand alone, obviously. But like me, I always want more. I'm a more type, and like that's like the more I can get, the better of all your best. By the way, like, so weren't you like, is it just Pretty Boy or just LILIM now then, or that's it, eh? I thought.
Yeah. I'm in only one band, which I know seems insane to most people, to anyone. And in my other bands, like Marty's in 5 bands, Adam's in 3 bands, Miranda's in 5 bands. So now I'm the lazy bandmate, but I'm in school too, and I work a full-time job. And I think one band, when we all sort of get back to it, will be more than enough for me now. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, yeah. I was just saying that coming from a place where I would literally be down for any band you're fronting. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, yeah. Like, let's move on to the next question. As a vocalist, who are your biggest inspirations?
I mean, oh man, I think I'm more of a lyricist, more inspired by lyricists than I am real, like, any particular singer. And I guess, like, I've said this a few other times in a few other interviews, but really, like, Fiona Apple is my goddess. Like, that woman can tell a story, that woman can sing, that woman can take you places. She can paint an entire, like, imaginative room for you. Yeah, I mean, tonally, I guess, like, Alexa from it's a power violence band called Uncle Ray. They're from Windsor. She has an insanely guttural, deep, low growl that, like, I'll never get to, no matter how hard I try. I just can't scream that low. I think she's friggin' amazing. And then I think his name's Anthony, the lead singer of Cult Leader, which used to be Gaza. He's, again, like, super guttural, but he also does some singing stuff, which was, like, pretty inspirational for the last LILIM record, because I actually sang on that, which was nerve-wracking because I'm not really a singer. But I know you're interviewing me as a front person, but I'm not, like, traditional real people who can sing. I'm not one of those people. So
Yeah, like I think you did a good job. I mean, I've listened to like some of those songs where like you're more sing-songy than others, um, and like yeah, like I think you do a good job. Um,
Trying real
yeah,
hard.
yeah, like and that's all it is, right? Like I mean, hopefully you'll be at this for a long time, right? Like and that's what I hope at least, because I think you're great for it, like.
Well, I didn't start playing music till I was 30, so I mean, it's a bit of a late stage development. So hopefully I'll keep going. I find myself like getting into things for like 5 to 8 year stints. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so into this. Fucking love this. Can't wait. Try to do every single possible thing in that world. Tour, do the whole thing, and then like I'm like, oh, I kind of want to do something new, and then I'll pick up I'll pick up something else and go try it for another 6 to 8 years. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I do find now that like music actually has incorporated itself in my life in not just a creative way, but in like a released way and like a cathartic and helpful and soul quenching way, if you could put it that way. So yeah, I'll probably keep at it a bit longer.
Sick. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that because the energy you bring and the just the like the whole way that you really like you present the same image that your voice is and stuff like that. It's like you're like a focused laser on stage, and that's like I really like that. Like, um, that's what I felt like when the first show I saw you with when you played with Phil's band. I believe it was it Sinner that day?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Phil Pack's an awesome dude. Check out Anecdotes if you haven't. Is his new uh, uh, podcast on Spotify just
He's
about
doing
music.
a podcast. That's so
Yeah,
fun. He's always
it's
doing something. He's so busy. There's another person in two bands, and then has a whole bunch of his own creative endeavors.
yeah, and that's like he's an awesome dude. But if it wasn't for him, like I would have never found out about LILIM, and so I'm so stoked on this. Like, but what I meant to say is that yeah, I saw you at that show and I was just blown away, and I think you definitely, as long as you can do it because like your heart's in the right place. And you know you do a good like serious job of what you do, right? It's not. I think that shines through, even if your sing-songy vocals aren't as like whatever. It's still like you can tell you're trying your best, and that's what I think people appreciate the most. But yeah, like I love all the feminist vibes that seem to surround you. And like, do you have any thoughts on the ex-feminist turned MRA author Warren Farrell? Now I know this one is a little bit out there for people. Warren Farrell is an author who used to be a feminist, who has gotten a lot of criticism for his MRA ways, men's rights activist ways. But why don't you answer the question? Sorry, Kirsten.
I mean, I like you know, well, which when we were chatting before, I hadn't heard of Warren Farrell. So I did a little bit of Googling and I watched a couple videos. I'm definitely not an expert on Dr. Warren Farrell. Excuse me, let me rephrase that. But my takeaway was that he was a feminist activist in the 70s, and he eventually felt he was helping set up women's groups. And I think maybe, and this is just my initial take on the guy, he got a little jealous, maybe he had a little issue with the fact that men weren't getting the same amount of attention, even though he was all pro feminism. And so he started his own men's rights groups, and the groups were initially supposed to be more about like men experiencing empathy or experiencing touch or experiencing like sharing feelings and these sorts of things. And while I agree with that, and I think that's a very important thing, especially in a culture that is so toxic has such toxic masculinity, I see the benefit. But I think what he did then was he took it a step too far, and he started, believing that he couldn't be in tandem with women. Like his writings are all about, from what I saw today, like his book Boy Crisis is just about like what happens to boys if they're not exposed to men. But what happens to any child who loses a parent or doesn't have a nuclear family? Like, why are you so focused on men? Like the only thing I can think of is like, again, like I said, he was jealous or there was some issues, and there was like he like viewed the feminist movement as some sort of like attention away from him, and the way to get attention back to himself was to try to victimize himself in this weird way. And so there was like this secondary gain to illness. Like he gained more attention by being like, but well, look, men are victims too. And it's like, you've completely missed what the feminist movement is about. It's not about going, women are victims. That is not the point. Like, but I feel like that's what he took away from it. And just the limited shit I watched, including like 45 minutes of him talking to Jordan Peterson about the theory of rough play and rough housing, and how that helps young men distinguish the difference between aggression and rage. And so they need that, and they need that from other men in these men's groups in order to like learn that. And he's trying to take it from like a Piaget, like Winnicottian, like these like early childhood development theorists, and say that they are writing about that too, so it's true. And like as I mentioned, like as somebody studying psychotherapy right now, like that's not what either of those two motherfuckers are saying. So like,
no, like I really appreciate you answering this question, and I was hoping you would sort of dive right into it like you have, because like yeah, especially like I can tell you're not like just like a some sort of misinformed feminist or something like that. Not that there really are that many of them, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like feminism does deserve its attention, and not, like, but like, I just appreciate that you answered this question, and like that, like to get your insight, because I like, I'm not exactly waving the war and feral flag myself, but I do find him as an interesting example of what MRAs are. And that's what I sort of think, like, feminism has built itself a really solid reputation with, over the years of like, activism and stuff like that. And so I think it's kind of, prudent to sit there and be like, okay, well, what does an MRA look like? And I guess this is sort of, Warren Farrell is kind of like the best example I could
yeah,
give.
I'd say he's like soft MRA, I'd say he's obviously not like condoning pickup artist or like any of that kind of like grosser incel-y, anti-women shit, but it is anti-woman in a way, right? It's still, he's just the soft version. He's the same. It's when you have people like become pro Jordan Peterson, they're like, well, he's promoting picking yourself up by the bootstraps, and these 12 steps for better living your life or whatever, like essentially the like 1950s suck it up methodology. And that all that does is sort of like put a thin coat over the misogyny. Like it's if you just read it with any critical thinking, you would go, oh, this is just men whining about or worrying about no longer being the lead or the head or the top end of the social economic spectrum. And it's sort of like, man, you've also really misunderstood what feminism is. Feminism isn't about taking something away from you. It's not about emasculating you or feminizing you or anything like that. Those are all your choices. You want to do that stuff, do it. But it's about just creating an equal playing field. Like,
yeah. Oh, I feel that.
Hopefully one that's less toxic and less segregated in a way. Like, I guess I sort of understand though the benefit of, I can't believe I'm saying this, of groups doing work within groups, right? Like it's like, for example, like I recently joined a group, therapist group. We haven't met yet. That's for white therapists to sit down and talk about whiteness and talk about what it is to be white and talk about the problems that we run into. And obviously nothing from a privileged perspective, but the problems that we might run into in the consulting room with not having totally processed what it is to be white, right? Mm. And that work has to be done by white people in a group. It shouldn't be on a person of color or a Black person to lead and deal and teach. It should be us taking it away and learning. But there's something nefarious about men's rights groups. It doesn't seem like it's actually like the way that Warren Farrell's trying to spin it. He's like, it's about creating love and caring and touch and all this stuff that men don't get. But it doesn't, there's something that's missing from it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. I don't like that. Otherwise, you know, if it was some benevolent like sort of thing, you know, 100%, like I would be on the bandwagon, you know. But like I don't, like you said, I like what you said at the beginning of all this was, you know, critical thinking. That's an important skill, you know. So like I don't co-sign Warren Farrell or Jordan Peterson or whatever, you know. Because with my critical thinking, I found holes in what they do. But yeah, like moving right along. What is it like? What was it like playing with, you know, two separate bands at the same time? And like yeah, like how was that? Like being in, you know, like because you were playing shows with both of these bands around the same. You know what I'm saying? Like that's an achievement, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was like Monday night school, Tuesday night LILIM Jam, Wednesday night school, Thursday night Pretty Boy Jam, Friday night LILIM show, Saturday Pretty Boy show, or go, you know, out of town playing something. It was really intense, but it was like, you know, like I said, I only started like 5 or 6 years ago. And so to like get your chops up to play, especially to play with like Adam and Miranda and Marty, like, well, anybody who I've played with, Kat, you know, easy to play with people who've been playing for 10 plus years, like all those people have. Like I had, you know, I felt like it was kind of like a boot camp scenario. Not that I consciously thought that, but I think that was sort of the go work as hard as you can to get those skills up so that you can actually like start to make music the way you want. And it also was just like two completely separate types of creative space. Like being in an all-female space or female identifying space, like a lot of different shit comes out. Like I never would have sang about like, you know, being a 16-year-old super perv and like really wanted to grind down on my 17-year-old boyfriend and like not wanting his mom to catch me, but wanting to smoke weed and get mine. In LILIM, like I never would have wrote that, right? Like I never would have been inspired to touch on these like very early all-female spaces like your teenage years if I hadn't had the opportunity of being in that band. So that was so great. And then in LILIM, like one of the first conversations I ever had with Marty about like what I wanted to write about was like sort of the extreme end of like, what would it be to meet violence with violence? Like, what would it be for women to fight back in that same violent way? And he's like, just write about it. Like, it's not that you're ever going to do it. It's not like you would ever go and like slit somebody ear to ear like you sing about, but like, why don't you just test out how, like, what you can say, you know? And it was great because, yeah, I mean, it's to be able to fantasize about something and sing about it. That's safe expression and an expression of something that a lot of people don't ever get to do.
Yeah.
So,
and that like speaks a lot to like the professionalism that I was sort of hinting at before that you bring to your bands and stuff. Like kudos to you for you know, taking it like seriously, you know, and just, you know, it wasn't just a stupid little thing you do on the side or something. I mean, it was something that you did do in tandem the rest of your life, but like, you know, you seem to like, there's a lot of thought to like, you know, the complexity to what you do. And I like that.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's the years and years of athletics. Again, something we were talking about earlier, but like, you don't show up to the team unprepared. You don't show up untrained, you know, like there's in soccer, you know, there's 11, 10 other people on the field relying on you. If you're not trained up and you're not trying but you know what, at the same time, music is so much fun. Like some jams, like Marty, Miranda, and Adam will change positions, or I'll go play the drums, and we'll just smoke a huge fucking joint and just like make noise, or just like talk about what we're into for an hour and a half. Like it's really also just a super rad excuse as an adult to still get to see your friends like once or twice a week. Like it's so cool.
Yeah, most definitely. All right. So like before, when we were chatting on the lead up to like all of this, you mentioned a band called Pupil Slicer. They sound pretty fucking rad. I listened to them. Wow. Like that is actually like thank you for showing me them. But like, can you tell me anything about them? Like what's the DL here?
I guess like they consider themselves like mathcore, grindcore, metalcore. They're a 3-piece from London. I think I saw them or something about them on either like on Prosthetic, because they're on the same record label as Vile Creature, my buds in Vile Creature. So yeah, Vile Creature's on them. I started following Prosthetic. Prosthetic put an album out by them, or put out a single by them, and I was like, this fucking rips. This is so like intense and so all over the place and like super tech, which I mean, like, as I have learned more about the different cores, and again, I'm not some master of them. And if you were like, yo, somebody's gonna be like, oh, People's Slicer's not mathcore, dude. How do you fucking call it mathcore? Fuck you, mathcore. And so, you know, went down that rabbit hole, and then like waited like they were like, here's our single, and you know, the new album Mirrors isn't coming out for another 2 weeks, and I was like, and forgot, because I have the memory of a goldfish. And then finally listened to like the whole Mirrors album, I think like earlier last week, and was like, damn, this slays. Like, so all over the place. You can tell they're making whatever the fuck they want. They don't care about chord changes. They don't give a shit about the different sound. Like, every song is somewhat different too, which maybe this is how like shows a little bit of my narcissism, which is why I really like playing in LILIM, because we just make whatever we want whenever we want. And so whatever, you can't pick a genre too bad, but I really like that. Like, you just get to play. And then, actually I was talking about this last night with my partner, because we were listening to it, and he was like, you know, this also reminds me of The Armed. Like, the spastic nature of People's Slicer kind of reminds me of The Armed. And so of course then we listened to the new Ultra Pop album, and I was like, damn, this slays too. Like, there's something about really spastic, like, harder music that I get really into. It really gets me going.
Yeah, mathcore is one hell of a genre too. Like, I like that. Like, ever since my high school days, I was sort of into a bit of what was going on there, and like it's like a really interesting genre. If people haven't checked it out, definitely look into some mathcore. Like, there's a few bands in Toronto going, but the big famous one that everyone knows, Between the Buried and Me, they're pretty fucking good. Like, they've been doing it for quite a long time. That was one of my favorite ones in high school. Used to ride my bike to school and listen to BT Bam all day. Fucking, yeah, man. But yeah,
ready for class then. Wake you up in the morning.
Exactly. Okay. So yeah, moving on. We got now. There's this character, okay, in the Ontario political sphere, okay? His name is Sam Oosterhoof. He's Ford's Niagara lapdog millennial who has parties of nearly 50 people without masks and is outspokenly against abortion. Now,
he also recently went to an event where they compared abortion to the Holocaust.
Oh dear God.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is why I asked you about him. Because I have a gripe with that guy, and I'm gonna get to it. But like,
no, yeah. I mean, he definitely he's got a very punchable face, I would say, Mr. Oosterhoof, or however the fuck you say his last name. I mean, he's a really, he kind of, again, something we were talking about earlier, he kind of reminds me of like the Bernie Bros, you know what I mean? Like, these very high intellectual, like, can poke a hole in any theory, like, so studied in philosophy, like, look at me, and, you know, I'm so nihilistic in nature, but so deep in my emotion. Like, he just seems like one of those guys who, like, you know, he could argue his way out of anything. And those people generally lack a lot of empathy, because it's not about listening, it's about being right or wrong. And that is a terrifying quality in somebody who's like an MP, or like leading any sort of political part or doing it. You know, I can see how he like seduced the local, I think he's like West Niagara or something, like he's out there, seduced the locals to believe. But man, what a dangerous dude.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, yeah, oh man. But thank you again for you know, putting up with my gripes. And you know, I know sometimes it's hard for people to talk about politics, so I'm gonna you know, like bring it back to the music. You get what I'm saying?
I mean, politics are fine. I mean, this is the thing, is like, you don't need to pull just because you believe in one person believes in one thing and one person believes in the other. Like what doesn't mean that they can't coexist. And the polarization of this shit has just, and like I'm guilty of it too. So it's, you know, I'm sure there's a few people in my life who are like laughing at the thought of me saying this, but like those are people too, right? Like as I was like just shitting on Ustahoof for whatever, like Ustahoof is a human too, and like he became who he is because of his environment and all these other things. And of course now he's an adult making choices, and then I can't excuse those or excuse anything that he does. But if we don't talk about these things, if we don't like take the time to actually have discourse that might be uncomfortable, it's just going to keep dividing further and further and further. And when we have to make like big populist decisions, we won't be able to, because people will be so brutally divided. And it's difficult and it sucks. And I would probably really want to punch an Ustahoof fan in the face, but like I wouldn't. I would sit down and would be like, well, what about this person's platform actually interested you? Like, why are you engaging with this person as your representative? What do you feel this person is fighting for on your behalf in your municipality? And like, what am I missing? You know?
Yeah, no, I feel you. I think the big thing is the trust level. You know, the people trusted him there, and that's, you know, but unfortunately, Niagara has a laundry list of issues and stuff like that, and they'll probably trust a lot of people just trying to get out of the situation that they're in. But I have hope. They do, you know, like eventually the Oosterhoef storm will move on. And you know, and there's been some hope out there, but yeah, like back to the music. February 15th, 2020, show at the Monarch, where you and PRETTYBOY played with Blue and Order of the D-Boy Scouts. Yeah, tell me about that. Like, is there like, you know, like how did you find out about the show? Did anything cool happen after, before, or anything? Like, just tell me about it.
You know, like the gatekeepers of the local scene, I guess, eventually saw us. I mean, I hate to poo-poo on Dan Burke. I love Dan Burke, but he's definitely a gatekeeper. And he and Izzy started chatting, and so he started. I guess he listened to the demo. He liked the demo. He started putting us on his shows, and he's like a guy who gets to book bigger things. And so I guess the D-Boy and Blue liked us, and we're like, yeah, that's definitely who should open for us. And you know, they were super rad guys. I mean, we were very different from them. They were a lot more, you know, it's Dine Alone. It's a lot, no offense, I mean, maybe minus Alexis on Fire. They're a lot more polished. The artists are not talking about big issues. They're not, you know, it's a little bit cleaner in a way. Rock and roll. I mean, I think D-Boy definitely has a pretty cool stage thing that he does. I like his whole get up. I like his threes to the crowd, and he's all about good vibes, and like I'm totally into that. Blue actually I liked Blue better. I thought what that guy brought, and he's in the Dirty Nil. I can't remember his name right now.
Yeah, that's
what's his name?
I can't remember his name too, and it's terrible because I lived in the same town as him. Ross Miller from Well.
I really fucking dug what he did. I liked Blue. I thought his whole his energy and his performance and his fucking leg moves and shit. Like I was engaged. I was like, yeah, man. Like I'm about what you're doing. Like.
I like Blue too. Like I downloaded. He put out the Blue album for free, actually. And I fucking downloaded that shit. I was like, fuck yeah. And then exactly what you're saying. Like everything was very polished there. Like very.
I thought he was polished, but he was also really real. And I liked his voice. I liked the whole thing. I liked his band. And they were really nice dudes who like wanted us there and like dug that we were like a screechy, dirty, smashy punk band. Like they didn't, you know, they accepted our lack of refinement, I guess, in a sense. And that, you know, and I dig that. I dig when bands are like still, you know, not snooty and like can get into it. I think the funniest part of that night was we were at Patondo's across the street, and fucking I don't really drink, but like everyone else in that band in PRETTYBOY, like they like to fucking well, they used to like to put it on, you know, pre-COVID. And Izzy and my partner and I think, and Izzy's partner Amanda, were sitting in Batondos and we're just smashed, like eating pizza. And she looks up and she realizes it's the D-boy guys, and they're saying like good night to us and whatever. She's like, later, man. And Mark's like, my partner throws up the threes, and he's like, for good times. And they took a photo of him. So there's this like horrible photo of Izzy being like, and like Mark being like, and everyone's like holding their pizza in the air, all excited, that they put up on their Instagram, which made me laugh because
that's pretty good.
Everybody, yeah.
D-boy is awesome.
And it was also like a crowd that would never come to a Pretty Boy show. So there was a lot of people who like saw us that aren't a part of like the Scorpio Rising or the Walmarts or like Piper Maru, like this sort of like Toronto, and it's punk, but it's not, you know, like,
yeah, like post-punk scene.
Yeah, we all play together, but it's not traditional punk, you know, like they just let everybody in.
Yeah.
And they're super welcoming. So it was like, the Dine Alone, like people who would only ever go see a Dine Alone band came to this show and were exposed to us. And some people dug it and bought some tapes and said thank you. And that's always the best part, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, I mean, you know, like, I got another question for you here. This one is about the trying times that we're in. You know, can we all get a COVID stress emotional support dogs as accessories and pretend like it isn't the most ironically paradoxical solution for companion and animal overpopulation and homelessness?
Yeah. 1 sec. Hold on. Let me get mine. Okay.
Yes? Is that a yes? Oh,
Yeah.
look at that! Look at that! When did you get this guy?
I've had Jimmy for almost 15 years now. So we're a little bit pre-COVID.
So he's not an accessory dog.
He is not an accessory dog. He's an OG dog. I think so if I'm understanding your question correctly, are you commenting on the the millennials quick move towards getting pets during these COVID times in general?
I'm criticizing everybody, not just millennials. You know what I'm saying? I'm criticizing everybody has a dog now. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what COVID happened and people were just like, oh yeah, let me just go to the breeder and like, you know what I'm saying? And then nobody's like, okay, I'm gonna go and like, you know, adopt a friggin' kennel dog from the friggin', you know, Humane Society.
Oh, you're misinformed. They frickin' are.
That's good.
Humane Society's backlogged. All those redemption paw places. Everyone's. Ooh, excuse me. I am down for people doing whatever they want to do as long as they recognize how much friggin' work it is to have an animal. This isn't like something you just pick up to do because you're fucking bored and you're at home and like if you're going to do that, then just foster and give the dogs back. Don't take the dog home. Don't keep the dog. It is a lot of work. If I want to go anywhere or I want to do anything, and this is like pre-COVID times, I got to go home first and walk the dog, or I gotta find somebody who's going to take him for a month and a half while I'm on the road. You know what I mean? Like it's not just a light decision. Even though I made this decision when I was 20 because he's 15 and I've had him for 15 years, but you know, I then grew the fuck up real fast, and that's kind of what it takes. And so if people are all really down to start that growth process, get a dog, do it.
Right.
You want me to say goodbye? Love you,
Oh, yes, that was awesome. And now, the piece de resistance, the moment where I embarrass myself, okay? Because you've been talking about your partner, okay, the whole time. I'm very jealous. So my last question is, can old peanut butter over here treat you to a strictly platonic, socially distanced, caffeinated beverage where he reads you love poems to get your feminine input on cadence and also brags about the time envoy to the UN Secretary General Stephen Lewis called your boy an ideologue? Now, okay, I know that was a mouthful, okay, and you have partner, but listen. I need to be able to say I've had a date in the last little while. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to do stuff. Like that's So like, what do you? I'm also trying to brag about my talk with Steph and Lewis. Like, what do you think? Come on, come on, come on.
I appreciate the offer. I, as a enjoyer of the caffeinated beverages, I'm happy to socially distance and have one. Yeah, I'll invite my partner. Mark loves coffee.
Yes, yes. Okay, it's still a date. It's still a date.
Well,
Yes. Okay. Tell Mark it's a date.
it's not. Yeah, I mean,
I'll kiss Mark. I will.
yeah.
I'll kiss him
Well,
goodnight.
you're not gonna kiss me. Thank you so much. Yeah, I can't speak for him. Maybe he'll be down for it, but I appreciate it.
I love kissing the homies goodnight. I love kissing the homies goodnight. Okay, so don't you worry. But thank you so much. This has been amazing. Like I'm like it's just wonderful to talk to you. You know, get down on what's going on with Pretty Boy and LILIM. You know, I think it's really important people hear what's happening in the Toronto music scene, and you're a big mover and shaker in that. Like, and like as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I think that like what you did was really positive, and like I just wanted to thank you for being here and like showing people what being a musician and a vocalist and somebody who cares about politics and other stuff too is like like that's so thank you. Appreciate
You're very welcome. Yeah, I mean, like I said, 2 albums are coming out soon. Becky and Darlene. That's what one's called Becky, one's called Darlene for Pretty Boy. So look out for that stuff.
Sick.
We put a lot of heart and soul into it, and it's fucking weird. And I'm really excited. Really sad to say that Pretty Boy's over, but I think we'll leave you with something that's worth listening to. And LILIM actually is, well, I'm sure this might air later, but we're gonna have some vinyl soon of the album that we put out last year. So we'll have a little something for everybody too. So yeah, I mean, I can't wait to get back to it and see you in IRL and smell the gross bovine and fucking drink 14 shots of Jameson and I don't know, stumble home. Good old bovine night. So
yeah, bovine. I love that place. I bought a bovine T-shirt. I was like, I gotta support the fucking venues. That's
Yeah, I hope there's some. I guess on that point too. Like, I hope there's some good stuff left when we get out of this, because those are the places that like this scene is allowed to participate. Like the spaces for the weirdos. We got to keep those spaces open. So maybe you don't want to buy a bovine shirt, but go figure out what local spaces are out there and support them so that we can play music when we get back to it.
Yeah, definitely. And on that note, let's all get back to life. Peace, deuces, 20scene.com. Check it out, okay? And have a wonderful rest of your evening, everybody. Peace. All right.